Hey there, whoa there, Rogue here. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu released earlier this week. Love it or hate it, let's talk about it. Nosferatu is Dracula, basically. The original Nosferatu released in 1922, and it's a silent film. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu pays homage to the original while maintaining its own identity. Spoilers ahead, don't say I didn't warn ya. Nosferatu stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, and William Dafoe. I want to start by saying that I was really excited for this movie. Unfortunately, I was let down. Don't get me wrong, I had a good time at the movies on Christmas Day, but this movie just was boring. But Nosferatu did a lot of things right. So let's start with the positives. Nosferatu is an absolutely beautiful film, a period piece taking place in the early 1800s in a fictional small town in Germany. Filming locations include Romania, the Czech Republic, and Canada. Very little CGI was used, and practical sets were built in order to transport the audience back in time to the early 1800s. Nosferatu is a Gothic visual masterpiece. The set designs and the character designs are all inspired by the Gothic aesthetic. I cannot stress enough just how beautiful that this movie is. Nosferatu had a budget of $50 million, and you can see every pretty penny on screen. There's even a line of dialogue spared no expense, which of course is a Jurassic Park reference. Let's talk about the star of the show, our titular character, Nosferatu, played by Bill Skarsgård. Wearing prosthetics from head to toe, including a prosthetic penis, Bill Skarsgård is completely unrecognizable. To create the voice, Bill Skarsgård worked with an opera singer and learned 3 different breathing techniques.
It is a black omen to journey in poor health.
The voice performance is absolutely incredible. However, there are several lines of dialogue where it's hard to understand exactly what he's saying, and there's one line of dialogue where he sounds a little bit like Count Chocula. Overall, though, I think this is an incredible voice performance, and that's why I'm including it here in the positives.
You will remain and well rest yourself. You will obey this my counsel.
Important to the character of Nosferatu are his hands. Bill Skarsgård does a really great physical performance with his hands, especially when in the shadows. He's basically playing shadow puppets on screen. But it's great, it's incredible. He pays homage to the original, and he also makes it his own as well. I actually think this character is at its best while in the shadow form. He just seems so much more ominous while he's in his shadow form versus when we get to see him in all his mustachio glory. Lily Rose Depp as Ellen is absolutely phenomenal.
Come to me. Here, Michael. Come to me.
The character of Ellen is described as melancholy, and Lily Rose Depp perfectly captures that sad, distraught energy. I really like that she wasn't a damsel in distress and she took things into her own hands. Instead of being saved by a man, this character does the saving. By taking things into her own hands, Ellen sacrifices herself to save her husband.
It is like a dream. It was our wedding. When we turned around, everyone was dead.
I do need to mention that I didn't completely believe the love triangle. Ellen seemed very disconnected from her husband and completely infatuated with Nosferatu. Nicholas Hoult as Thomas Hutter goes through so much in this film. His boss betrays him, his wife is in love with a vampire, and he has an awkward sex scene. A real estate agent in the early 1800s, Thomas Hutter is sent by his boss to Transylvania to complete a sale. Unfortunately for Thomas, he's been sent to the castle of Nosferatu. My favorite scenes in this movie take place in the first half with Thomas Hutter on his trip to Transylvania and his experience at Nosferatu's castle. Nicholas Hoult perfectly captures the energy of a person who wants to say no, but just can't. From the very beginning, he knows that something is wrong, and he goes against his better judgment. Nicholas Hoult gives an incredible performance, having to go from anxious to nervous, intimidated, and then scared for his life, all within just a few scenes. My absolute favorite scene in this movie is the horse carriage from hell. During his journey to Transylvania, Thomas comes to a crossroads that just so happened to be an inverted cross. With the scene being lit only from behind, a horse-drawn chariot with a ghost driver appears. The door of the chariot ominously opens by itself. Going against his better judgment, Thomas gets in. Thomas leaves the light behind him and enters the darkness. When this happens, the style of the film switches to more closely resemble the 1922 original, a beautiful artistic choice. As the carriage made its way towards the castle, I couldn't help but think to myself, did he just enter a chariot to hell? And as soon as I finished thinking that, the hellhounds closely followed behind.
I must object, my lord.
You will obey this my counsel.
But, my lord... Count?
Being forced to spend the night in Nosferatu's castle, Thomas signs a deal with the devil and accidentally gives him a locket of his wife's hair. Nicholas Hoult gives a great performance as he's scared looking for his way out of the castle.
We are here encountering the vampire. Nosferatu.
William Dafoe as Professor Eberhardt is a scene stiller. Professor Eberhardt is introduced in the second half of the film as a Van Helsing type character. William Dafoe's electric performance is the only thing that kept me awake in the second half of this film.
I have seen things in this world that would have made Isaac Newton crawl back into his mother's womb.
That line of dialogue actually got a laugh out of the entire theater.
I have wrestled with the devil as Jacob wrestled the angel in Peniel, and I tell you, if we are to tame darkness, we must first face that it exists.
For me, William Dafoe saved this movie at the end.
He is coming.
I saved the best for last. Let's talk about my favorite performance of the film, Simon McBurney as Hernock.
He is coming.
The minion of Nosferatu and Thomas's boss, this character deserved a lot more screen time.
Why have you killed these beautiful flowers?
Let us put them in water.
They will only die in a few days. Throw them out.
The character design is absolutely beautiful. From the clothing, the hair, the makeup, everyone is wearing a early 1800s Gothic aesthetic. William Dafoe's Professor Eberhard is my favorite character design. He wears this incredible jacket, and it reminds me of Sherlock Holmes. Let's talk about the incredible music. The music by Robin Corlin is hauntingly beautiful.
Come to me. Come to me.
Now let's discuss the aspects of the film I feel mixed.
I have wrestled with the devil. If we are to tame darkness, we must first face that it exists.
Aaron Taylor Johnson as Frederick Harding, Thomas's friend and a vampire skeptic. Frederick is a very rich man, especially considering it's the early 1800s.
Around. The stench of their bodies was horrible.
Frederick the Skeptic doesn't really have much to do in this film besides be a husband and father of two. His wife is also currently pregnant with a third child. Frederick and his family meet their fate due to Nosferatu, and that's the only memorable thing about these characters.
The stench of their bodies was horrible.
For me, the only scene with tension in this movie is when Nosferatu kills the Harding family. Frederick's pregnant wife wakes up in the middle of the night to find Nosferatu killing their two young daughters. Then Nosferatu kills the wife as well. Frederick, besides himself with grief, goes to the family mausoleum, opens his wife's casket, and then he has with the body. Then Frederick dies of the plague. They loosely set this up earlier in the film when Frederick mentions that his wife is pregnant again because he can't keep his hands off of her. Aaron Taylor Johnson is a great actor, and he does the best with what he's given, but he isn't given much.
He is coming. He is coming.
He's coming.
Nosferatu is making his way towards Germany, and he's bringing the plague with him. I actually was excited to see what they were going to do with this in the third act. I really like the idea of Nosferatu traveling by ship and bringing a plague ship to the fictional town in Germany. Unfortunately, not really much happens.
He is coming.
He's coming.
Background extras are infected with the plague. Frederick's wife is infected with the plague before she's killed by Nosferatu. And Frederick himself dies of the plague, but besides that, we don't really get much with the plague. The third act left a lot to be desired for me, and the plague is just one reason.
'Tis like a dream. It was our wedding. When we turned around, everyone was dead.
The heart of this movie is the love triangle, and I am just not invested. From the very beginning, Ellen is infatuated with Nosferatu. I thought she was going to become Nosferatu's bride, but instead she kills him.
I'm ready.
In a move that I found very surprising, Ellen decides to trick Nosferatu and kill him using the sunlight. Ellen distracts Nosferatu by having sex with him all night and allowing him to drink her blood. Apparently, the sex and the blood was so good that Nosferatu didn't notice the sun was rising, and he got the classic vampire death via sunlight. I did like Nosferatu's death because I didn't expect it to happen that way, and I also like the King Kong homages. It was Beauty who killed the beast, but this final act left a lot to be desired. The second half of the film left a lot to be desired. With that said, let's get into the negatives. Everyone who enjoyed this film, to you, I say,
I envy you.
This film had a lot going for it, and it should be something that I like, but it was just so boring towards the end. In my opinion, boring is the ultimate cinematic sin. There are a lot of bad movies that I would not describe as boring. And it's such a shame because this movie had so much going for it that I really enjoyed. But it's a slow burn with a long runtime. I just can't. It's way too boring in the second half. After Thomas leaves the castle, this movie completely loses me. I found myself just wanting it to be over.
Come to me. Come to me.
In the third act, Nosferatu gives Ellen 3 days to make her decision. And when he said that, immediately I just thought to myself, no. I just want it to be over. In conclusion, I found Nosferatu to be disappointing, but it was a fun day at the movies on Christmas Day. In my out of the theater reaction video, I gave Nosferatu a 3.5 out of 10. I thought about raising my score to a 4, but then I thought about it some more, and 4 is too close to 5, and 5 is average. This movie is way too boring to be close to average, so I'm going to be keeping my score of 3.5. Remember that film is art and art is subjective. Join my rogue gallery by pressing the subscribe button and follow me on Instagram @AlexisHasGoneRogue.